Awesome.
So it's November.
Cool. So I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off. So this is the, what is it, November 30th? This is the meeting for the Governance Committee. One of the things in particular that we're going to be talking about is a governance conference sometime in mid-February. What the agenda items of that should be, and then the beginnings of a draft of some sort of, what was the word Greg used, like constitutional architecture or governance architecture that we can use to formalize our governance processes in the actual cooperative. So one of the things I did, just for anybody that's new, is that I've done this with all the committees, but in the governance committee, I created a project within GitHub that I'll share with everybody. So we have issues there that we can work out of. The first issue, or not the first, but one of the issues that I just recently created was one for the governance conference agenda. I'll link that one to right here. So this is where we can, after these types of meetings, we can move our discussions and input into those issues to help, just continue to streamline our actual cooperation processes. And then what I did was I created the beginning of a declaration of interdependence based on what Jim had mentioned in the Hangout yesterday. All I've done so far in that, and I just put links to all three of them in the chat. All I've done so far is I took Vlad's post that Greg had mentioned in yesterday's Hangout, in which he outlined his ideas of good blockchain governance. And then I kind of basically just said, based on Vlad's outline, we should design an architecture for members that, it should be a governance architecture for members that includes, and then I listed out essentially the points that he had put in that. And then hopefully we can, with this document and the feedback we get leading up to a conference, we'll have sort of a deliverable that we can walk away with, and that would be like a constitution or a governance architecture. So in it, it's fairly simple. If you guys haven't read Vlad's post, it's like a string of tweets in which he describes his ideas of what an ideal governance situation would be and some of the factors that go into that. I'll just say one of his points, or a couple of his points, just to give an outline and a basis for this discussion. So my bet is that we could make concrete. So the general idea of governance guideline is that everyone should fully agree with whoever is right, and whoever is right should be the only uncompromising participant. I think that maybe the best policy idea is to have a long debate period before a deadline when a decision is made, regardless of the state of consensus. Because consensus will be impossible, but losing out on the benefits is too high a cost compared to the cost and risks of splitting. So governance is essentially about persuasion, consensus, and then if all else fails, pressing the issue. So what I put in the document is essentially that. How do we design an architecture for persuading other members, reaching consensus, or depending on what it takes to get a majority rule, and then mechanisms for potentially experimenting with alternatives. That's not necessarily needed, but let's say it's like a 51-49% vote. What do we do then, because it's so close? And then mechanisms for forcing the actual issue. So that's like the outline I have so far of what could be an architecture document for the governance, blockchain governance of the RChain cooperative. Another thing that I think we should circle back to and start this meeting on is, if we do want to do a governance conference in February, we should nail down like some ideas of logistics and roles and who's going to drive that actual effort.
Yeah, we got to book as soon as possible.
My little intro. Let me know what you guys think.
I think we need to book something.
Yeah, so like, all right, so I have a question immediately. Would we think of this like the developer retreat, like 5 days long, or is it something that's like 3 days?
My thought would be it's something that should be. I don't think it's a week long. I think a weekend would be sufficient. Sort of 2 full working days. So maybe Friday through Friday, Saturday working day, and then we can leave town on Sunday.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. One of the things we talked about in the hangout yesterday is like what is like the deliverable. So I guess this all centers around formalizing this type of architecture document. So that's what we walk away with on the end of like Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a budget?
So there is in the forecast budgets for these types of events. That's something that once we get more clarity on what like the scope of it would be, then we can see how it sets against that forecast. But yeah, there's budgets for events like this, creation of like conferences like that.
Right, and we can almost immediately set up a rock budget for the issue in GitHub.
Okay. I'm not sure if we lost Patrick. Jim, you're.
Jim was lagging. I just closed down a bunch of stuff just to try to get my connection better.
Yeah, actually, that helps.
We can set a budget on the GitHub issue, and maybe we should decide what budget we want to set on that GitHub issue.
Well, let's figure out what it is that we have to do logistically. And let's, figure out what days are perhaps the best from a cost perspective in February as well. I know that there are several top of the year conferences that are occurring. And so, February might be a really good time to travel. Right after CES, right after the JP Morgan Health Conference in San Francisco. So, that there may be some good pricing in February. So how do we want to go about with who's taking the lead on figuring out the logistics around organizing the conference?
Hey, Kevin, it seems you have some visibility about potential conflicts. So other big conferences that are going on in this space that might conflict. You just mentioned a couple. So do you have that master calendar in front of you? You can tell us the...
No, I only know about those two and those are in January.
All right.
CES first week of January, and I think the JP Morgan conference the second week, but because I was interested in going. So that's why I was looking at those. But I can, take a look at any conflicts. I don't think that, though, for the group, there shouldn't be any high profile events that are happening in February that would prohibit any of us from attending.
So, Kevin, do you want to take the lead on this?
Sure, I'll take the lead.
Okay, we can open a GitHub issue and a channel on Discord. Maybe a Google Doc.
Okay.
I think we should have a spreadsheet with all of the proposed venues. And, a column for conflicts and whatever, so that, we can rank order them ultimately. And then Kevin makes the decision. If it's a self-management style.
Well, I'll present. I will make the decision. I'll present the options. Make.
Yeah. The two mechanisms used in dig life are the sociocratic principles, which is based on consent. And
hey,
in order
to your background?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there was some noise in the background. I wasn't sure whose.
Yeah, in the governance work in Dig Life, we're employing the Socratic principles of consent, where in order to have an objection, it has to be inconsistent with the drivers or the principles or the goals of the co-op, or not safe enough to try. So it's not it's not a simple vote. There has to be an objection, and I like the idea of the person who has the best idea comes up, but I mean, just voting or objecting without presenting the best idea isn't reaching a good decision, or isn't helping us reach a good decision or the best decision. And the other is self-management. And in the self-management organization, decisions always come down to one person. One person's responsible for making the decision. And, we use a combination of that where we delegate the decision to somebody because we trust them. And we know they're going to listen to everybody's voice, which is a Socratic principle. And, they're going to give everyone a voice in stating it, getting the sentiment of the group or the rank ordering, and then pragmatically making the right decision. Because many times one person is better at doing that. You need an executive in order to have continuity and clarity and focus. And I'm not saying that we always delegate the decisions to one person, but I'm just suggesting that oftentimes that's a good strategy. A group can be much more effective if everybody knows what they're responsible for and they're given the authority to act because they're trusted with a particular task.
All right. Well, roger that. So in that regard, I will come up with the best option for the group and present it.
I love it.
So let me ask you this question to everybody. So this constitution, how it's going to be different than the co-op bylaws, what we already have in place? Or are we suggesting that we are going to increase the scope of bylaws which are not covered? I mean, I'm not expecting an answer right away, but at least co-op already has bylaws the way we are going to govern, right? Most of the things are covered. And I think I asked the same question in Discord channel, I think a few weeks back or months back. I think same thing came up that we need to write our constitution.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah. We have to write the Constitution and it has to be approved by the membership. And then we meet the obligation of bylaws in that whatever governance that we come up with is consented to.
Well, we already have several
vote of the members.
We already have several artifacts, right? We have the bylaws, and we have the 7 cooperative principles, and maybe there's some other things that we need to fold in together. But I don't think anyone is suggesting that we're going to throw out the cooperative entity that we've already registered and in the state of Washington. I mean, I think that's going to hold. So on Wednesday, Greg brought the subject up about using, is it around February 14th or 16th? The Valentine's Day 2018 falls on the 14th. Just practically speaking, I don't think too many of us want to be at a conference away from our loved ones on Valentine's Day itself. So just kind of throwing it out there, does the following weekend make sense? That would be Friday the 16th of February.
That works for me.
Yeah, no objections there. I would like to state for the record, though, that every day is supposed to be Valentine's Day.
Of course.
Right? Just in
Nice
case.
one, Kevin.
Okay, so so we're the tentative date is 2/16, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we could maybe just propose that. So propose February 16th through 18th. I mean, this is really loose right now.
Yeah, if there's no objection, we just go with it. We don't waste time with procedure.
So, and as far as location, we want something which is accessible foremost. So I think most of our membership is in the U.S., but wherever it is should be accessible to an international airport and not super crowded or expensive for folks who need to stay in hotels. And how many people are we thinking might attend? The annual meeting attendance was maybe about 50?
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
Yeah, give and take.
I would assume it'd be less, but who knows?
I would like Tampa or New York or Philadelphia.
Yeah, so in February, you've got weather considerations for Philly and New York.
Absolutely.
Then again, St. Pete, Tampa, it's kind of high season there, so the price is going to be a little bit higher. Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, what? My vote on that.
Here. I don't have to go because
You're not going.
Singapore. No.
No, you're not going to Singapore.
Yeah, so my vote's obviously St. Petersburg, if possible. Yeah, like you said, weather considerations. I don't want to go to New York in February. Seattle, is there any in the Midwest? Any members? Seattle's going to be pretty cold too.
Yeah, Denver can be considered as well. I mean, it is February in the Midwest, but I was just trying to think of something that wasn't too bad of a flight from either coasts.
Yeah, it's very central.
All right, so we'll put down Denver and St. Pete as two options right now.
And I'll research some other venues as well throughout the region. So we'll figure out, if there are any other conferences going on in any of those cities that would inflate the prices. So I'll make sure I research it thoroughly.
I know some folks that would definitely want Denver. We have some marijuana activists amongst us that I think would jump on that in a heartbeat.
Is that right?
For some.
Are the people who love the snow, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, and then the other main thing would be, like you said, who the expected attendance and who we want to formally invite.
I suggest that it has to be open to the members. You mean we could also have guests, that we advisors, whatever. And I think Vlad is going to be a key person that's going to have to buy into the venue and the location and the date, because he's sort of appointed by Greg to be our advisor, and he has said that he wants to be involved. He told me personally that he wanted to be involved in the group, and although he hasn't been involved in it thus far, I'm sure as we go down the road, he will take a role.
Okay, so at a minimum, Vlad, absolutely. The other members of the co-op, board members, et cetera. But and you mentioned guests. Do you think it makes sense to invite other folks who are thinking about blockchain governance and crypto economics that would be helpful in guiding us perhaps in some of these discussions?
It's something to think about. It would probably have to be someone who was somehow related to the RChain community.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, precisely.
So, well,
somebody that we can, like, there's multiple purposes to bringing them out there, like court them.
Yeah, so in my mind, I think perhaps Alex from CoinFund.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, I know that he has been helping other projects around crypto economics.
Well, yeah, certainly hopefully our directors or board members will make it. So Alex is on the board.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, Greg was saying that I was talking about the venue we had at the scenario governance conference we had in Vancouver. Vancouver? I think so. Last year, which, we had a number of presentations. There were exercises and things that we did. I don't know what you call them. Designed to have cohesion of the group.
Right. Well, Mokara might lead us in some of those, and her home base is Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder's an alternative. Or Colorado Springs, or maybe Albuquerque. I don't know.
Well, you'd fly into Denver for Colorado Springs or Boulder.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I set up. I'm sorry. I set up a Discord channel that's viewable by members. So there's little informal voting there too. If you wanted to add anything there, just put emoji voting, check or X some of these locations, dates. That was fast, Patrick.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. So the key takeaways so far at this point is that we have to propose a length for the event and then a location, and then we have to get those confirmed with Vlad. And then from there we begin an invitation list and more of the logistics.
Okay. Is there a GitHub issue, a spreadsheet? Who wants to take the lead with that?
there's the governance conference GitHub issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
Within it, there's not a spreadsheet for like logistics. I only have that document in there that we can work out of as a draft. But yeah,
I can start on the spreadsheet for logistics. I mean, I'll just own that process.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
That's perfect.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. And then we'll set a budget to this too. Public. Yeah, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good with you guys? You all?
That works for me.
Hey, should we talk about what other issues we want to cover?
Issues that we want to cover within the conference?
Well, in this meeting.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, sure. Let me just put up the projects. Ian, do you have something specific? I know we were just chatting.
Right. Well, so there's a board meeting likely tomorrow, and like Greg described yesterday, one of the issues that will be discussed is there are a couple parties that are interested in buying some pretty substantial quantity of rock. So the private sale is over. So this would kind of be a special thing to be considered. And I mean, I think Navneet and I were discussing, we have some questions, with what is the financial health of the co-op right now, whether we really need additional funding, and what we should consider in deciding whether or not to accept Jacob Basiri's $1 million purchase. And I think there was another one. So Greg said that he wanted to know what the community felt about this. So this might be a place where we can start to discuss that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a governance committee, more an executive committee thing. But certainly we can see if the feelings about that here. My own feeling is go for it. I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way of it. I don't know that it's necessary. It's hard to grow the community. It's hard to get developers on board. It's throwing more money at problems isn't a solution. But the fact is that what we're doing is very ambitious. And we're really trying to build a whole ecosystem here. And, it's a billions of dollars thing if we look at the whole thing. So we can certainly use the money. And I think, if we can govern ourselves sensibly, we could spend it well.
So, I mean, no doubt we'll have use for that money. I'm not sure we have the need for it right now. So there's the question of timing. I mean, is this something that would help us right now? And then there are some risks as well. So I was speaking earlier today with a securities lawyer who specializes in crypto, and he works on Capitol Hill. And I was asking him about this. And to his thinking, the biggest risk is if the co-op was to sell tokens to anyone who might be inclined to do any kind of manipulation of the price. That could be a very bad thing in the eyes of regulators. So I know it doesn't sound like Jacob's intention. He's talking about putting a 4-year lockup of those rock. But I was hoping he might be on this call because I wanted to ask him a little further about what his thinking is regarding the burn that he's been advocating for some time now. So he's the one from the very beginning who's been pushing the idea of burning some quantity of rock. It became a ballot issue in the annual meeting, and the membership supported it. and now we're in a position where we have to figure out how many rock we should burn and when. So as the number one advocate for a burn, and at the same time wanting to come in, take a major position in buying rock, I think we need to hear a little bit more from Jacob, how these things fit together.
I just reached out to him and see if he's available to jump on. So
okay.
maybe we'll be able to catch him today. So
all right.
Just in terms of, but Ian, to answer your question, or I think would help rather answer your question around the financial health of the co-op. Is there a phased budget? I saw the balance sheet and I see how that plays out and where dollars are allocated, but I haven't seen one that was phased across, months, the remainder of this year into next year. And so wouldn't that help give us a sense of the financial health?
Well, Lisa, our treasurer, is preparing financial reports, and will likely also have some kind of an independent audit or transparency report, which most likely would come out maybe by the end of March. So for the financial health, we're going to have a much better picture soon. But I can't say right now exactly what it looks like, except that the private sale went very well. We raised about $10 million, most of it in Bitcoin and Ether, which has all gone way, way up. So I believe we're doing quite well. So Lisa will be in the board meeting tomorrow. We'll be able to find out a little bit better specifics.
Okay.
Kevin, did you have, you were bringing something else up at the beginning of the meeting as a result of the member meeting?
Yeah, and so Ian, we had discussed previously summarizing the results of these conversations and having that summary be a part of the community debrief. And so we just wanted to, I guess, liaise with you to see, what could be the best approach, just to give the community an update on where these where the committees are, both the executive, compensation, governance.
So when you say where the committees are, you mean some calendar when they meet and
no, more specifically, there he is. But yeah, more specifically around the status and progress of the actions that the committee has taken.
It sounds good to me. The most public forum I think we have is that Wednesday debrief. So we always have a developer update. So you think maybe a governance update would be a good place to present our progress?
Sure.
I think in terms of outlining the organization, we say, the executive committee is in this state, the governance committee is in this state, the compensation committee is in this state. I think we have to look at where we are, where we need to be in the organization and operation of these committees, as well as having, updates in the member meeting in the community meeting is a good thing.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. We do those updates, and it might also help bring more people into participating in the governance. We can tell them where to go on GitHub or Discord or wherever. So I'll definitely, I'll pass that along for sure.
So Kevin, you're okay with doing an update? in the.
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all.
So, hey, to start with, this would be, we would talk about all of the committees, not just one, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
However, I
no,
think
We should bundle them to begin with until there's more activity.
right.
Okay, governance update. I like it.
Hey guys, it's cutting. Oh, hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I missed a lot of the last little bit of conversation, but what I heard was that we want to do an update on all three of the committees in the weekly hangouts. And Kevin, did you say that you would volunteer to do that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And if you want help with that too, obviously I'm there. I participate in all three of them.
I will be reaching
that's
out
cool.
without a doubt.
Yeah, I haven't forgot about our last conversations too, so I'll follow up on that shortly.
Yeah, no, I have something to update with you as well, so we can catch up later on.
Cool.
Okay, we got Jacob here.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob, yesterday during the hangout, Greg mentioned that you're making an offer to buy a bunch of rock, and Greg asked what the community felt about that. So this might be a place where we can kind of ask more questions and find out what you had in mind with your purchase. And my question is how that might fit in with the burn that you've been advocating for.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin, for the heads up. I'm glad to join in on this meeting and maybe do so more consistently. But it's my understanding that the burn is something that we voted on, and maybe a good signal to the next, as people walk in the door, I've noticed during the private sale or on Telegram sometimes, and obviously everyone's different, people ask about the total supply. So listen, I told Greg once, right now we've burned a few less than 200 million rocks to get to 860 million. On a percentage basis, that's like 14% of total supply. I think this technology could eventually be trillions and trillions of dollars of activity, of economic activity taking place on it. And 14% of that is not a big deal. I think in the big scheme of things, a burn more than anything else is a signal to the broader crypto community and may just demonstrate kind of some fiscal discipline that will enlarge in our community. So whether I've thrown out some big numbers out there, right? Like 200 plus million or 300 plus million. Then when I think about those numbers, again, it'll get us to whether from 1 billion tokens down to 600 million or 500 million. But I think what I think about, and again, that's a 50% reduction, right? So that seems like a lot, but again, if we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars, so if the market cap is neutral, that makes me or any investor a twice richer person. I don't care to be twice richer. It's not why I'm doing this, become a richer person, but it's for the signal to community. The other signal people really value or hang their hat on is how much aggregated power is in the co-op and in holdings or Pyrofex. I'm glad that Pyrofex is going to be another avenue through which we're going to get rocks out there and build business development and apps and stuff. But I think the critical number is what percentage of rocks does co-op have? I actually think they should have a bunch of rocks. I think 50% is still a lot of rocks, of the rocks outstanding. I think it might still be too much. I think people might want a more community-driven proportion of rock circulating. I also think a little bit of more discipline will probably as it increases the confidence of the people coming through the, RChain front door, I think it'll make the co-op actually more powerful if you kill some of the rocks. Because then, and this is another thing that we've talked about, Ian, which is the price of rock itself. Like, the price of rock goes up to $2, and then the co-op will be very well funded to develop through 5 stages of RChain development. So I think the price of rock going to $2 is not extreme, but it's also not a given. Like, it's not a given that will happen. That's like where I start in my head. Is like, will the price of rock go to $2? And then how many rocks does co-op have to fund the development of the 5 stages of the RChain platform? Now, in the big picture, I keep saying like trillions and trillions of dollars of economic value given to society. I really think we're going to need probably a new staking token owned by the co-op to pull that off. And the supply will be much, much greater probably. If we don't want to talk about that now, that's fine. I'll just put that out there as a long-term solution. And I think in the near to medium term, which I think is, this 1 year and then the 5 years that hopefully get us to like the blockchain as a commodity, which is what Greg likes to talk about. I'm thinking about how can the Rev as a token be valued in a fair but useful way to kind of balance our needs, which are widespread adoption and distribution, well-funded cooperative. That's pretty much like what's the way I think about it. Now, how that relates to me purchasing, I guess you're saying like, am I trying to like, I don't know. I hope what I said kind of explains it a little bit. I kind of don't look at them as really that related. I know that might be hard to, maybe that's hard to believe. You let me know if that's hard to believe. I'm happy to talk more about it.
Okay, so you're okay with buying your 1 million after the burn?
Oh,
Smart.
From what the board has said about the burn, they said it can only happen with a special meeting or at the next membership meeting. And a special meeting, I think, requires a quorum of members there, which I think is really hard to achieve. Because if you have to be there in person, it's a lot of people to get in the same place, and we're all in different places. I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, things change. I mean, I'm ready to, like, it's not just me. It's not like I have like a pile of money sitting right here, but we're having conversations to be able to buy as one unit a large sum of rocks. And my expectation was that I would need to do this before 2018 because there's that resolution. That was my expectation. Greg said it may be possible to do during 2018. So I was operating with a sense of urgency. If the community wants me not to, or for whatever reason, then that's something we could talk about. Things change. I mean, right now, knowing what was taking place, I was like, maybe this is a stretch during which I should do this because 2018 is coming, and then maybe the opportunity doesn't exist.
So 2018, you're referring to the restriction that the co-op has that we can only put out like a couple 100 million rock for the whole year of 2018.
Right, and the board interpreted that, minus operating expenses.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Cohen's numbers is
okay.
Alex Khan is Majid.
What are your thoughts, Ian?
I'm just figuring. So you're on track with. So I mean, you've been pushing for the burn, and I was under the impression that you wanted it sooner rather than later. But you're agreeing that as far as a number, that the membership should, that it should come to a vote of the entire membership as to the amount of the burn?
Yeah, I mean, the resolution says significant member input. So my bringing it up is just, let's start having a conversation. I don't think it's going to happen next week or 1 month. I'm not even under the impression it'll happen. I actually believe it's hard to get a special meeting. So I'm afraid it's gonna, and I'm actually not afraid. I think it's actually good, maybe, because it gives, like you say, flexibility for the co-op. For if it happens, you know, even in October 2018 at the next member meeting. But I think that if we talk about it, that in and of itself is a good signal. It just shows healthy dialogue, that we're coming to some sort of human consensus, or at least talking about it. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. I'm happy to say what I have to say. I think we should be patient. We shouldn't make any rash decisions. That's what I think. And I think the board said that we have to get members' input. I want members' input.
So perhaps there should be a discourse channel.
Yeah,
And, you know, when we get to the point where everyone's talked out,
yeah, I just don't have
we can have people propose amounts, and we can do some rough emoji voting to present alternatives to the full membership.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of conversation in the executive committee channel on the subject. So, Jim, take a look. Oh no, you've contributed there, I believe.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not up to date in the executive committee.
Okay.
There's too many channels for me. But yeah, you could even the executive committee is a fine place to deal with. The executive committee should choose, you know, the lead and the scribe, or the, you know, for the committee, and decide when they're going to have meetings, where their status is.
Want to get that there?
Besides it, you know, so, you know, I think there needs to be some basic organization there. But yeah, that's a fine place to discuss it, and you could, when it gets to the point where we're ready to think about exactly how much we're going to burn, emoji voting is a good way to narrow down the alternatives.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think, you know, even in talking to Renal, he had different ideas how we could give confidence to the community against that, like, how much control does co-op have over the total supply? I'll let Renal speak for himself, but it's kind of in the middle of not necessarily burning, but also other people have had ideas like that too. But I thought his made a lot of sense. Well, he's not here now, but eventually he'll share his ideas. But I think open discussion is great, because I don't have all the right ideas, and I know other people have great ideas. So.
Well, I think we're all in agreement about, we're all confident that that rock will likely go up in value. We all think that it should be widely distributed so that there are many people holding it, and not too many whales holding undue influence. You know, a fair and equitable distribution is a necessity in order for people to have the confidence to participate and use the platform. So it's just a question of, you know, how best to go about doing that.
Yeah.
So you spoke about a 4-year lockup. So, I mean, 4 years, it wouldn't be Rock anymore. It would be Rev.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling my investors that, like, you know, you can't ask me for your money back within 5 years, and this, because it might have an adverse effect on our community or even their investment or whatever. So I think that's good for the community, because, you know, like you said, undue influence. It's one of the hedges against having someone buy so many coins, which I think happened during the private sale. There was one really big ticket purchaser, but I don't know who that was, obviously. I don't know if they're active in the community, but one thing is, it's not me buying all of them. It's like a bunch of people. It's not just me, but they're family and friends, very close to me, no strangers. It's kind of like how I invested the first time through my LLC. And the other thing is, I'm telling them, which I didn't do in the first, like in the private sale where I raised a much smaller sum of money. I told them, whenever you want your rocks, tell me, I'll send them to you. This time, no one's asked for their rocks, by the way. But this time, it's a larger sum, so I'm just cautioning people, don't expect your money for 5 years.
I got you. And so, I mean, what time frame were you prepared to invest for? And is your group still open? I mean, are there community, current RChain community members who are, coming to you wanting to participate in your purchase?
From the legal perspective, I'm really not marketing it at all. It's again just conversations with family and friends. But I feel like I have a relationship with everyone in this community, so I don't want to let anyone miss out if they want to participate. Again, I feel a little uncomfortable for the legal reasons, but again, I'm not marketing this at all to anybody. I'm not like asking people to invest. I'm really just updating my initial participants in the private sale. And I have a call now, but I'm going to tell him I'll call him back. Hold on. So I have mixed feelings about that. I'll bring it up with my lawyer. Again, but if anyone's interested, ping me. I'm really not advertising this, and I feel a little uncomfortable, but it's fine. You could ping me, and it doesn't mean that I'm definitely going to accept, random people. But if I don't know what to tell you, I'll try to do the right thing. Is all I could say. The time frame, things happen quickly. It's not like I've been planning this for a very long time, but I was putting in my head a time frame of before the last week in December, because the holidays are going to be coming up.
I spoke to his lawyer, but I want to know if I can.
It may happen in January if that's allowed by the co-op, and if there are certain reasons. I know some people have tax reasons that they might want to do it in the next year instead of this year. I was telling everyone, you know what, we're not waiting. We have to just do it in December. That was the message I put out. Now, whether it gets delayed for certain logistical reasons, it may be the case, but I really don't want to delay, because I think things should happen quickly and smoothly, and we should move on to other projects and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think a delay would work because of that limitation we have in 2018.
Yeah, Greg.
It'll be a squeeze.
Greg yesterday told us that if need be, it may be still possible, but I don't know how he was thinking about it. But again, I don't want to get into that right now. I could, but there's nothing to talk about. I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, well, yeah, it's helpful to hear, more details about what you were looking at. Any questions from anybody? Navneet, Jim? Folks have dropped off already.
I guess I'm boring.
Hey, Navneet, are you still there? I don't think he's there. It's just you and me and someone recording. Okay, well, The hour, we're running over a little bit. It's 5 minutes after the hour.
So maybe I could still have that call. So I'll sign off.
All right.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Take care. Bye. Thanks
Okay.
everyone.
See you,
Bye-bye,
Jim. Bye.